Hi, everyone. Welcome on the podcast Stories from War. Our guest today is a Canadian volunteer that joined the Hospitaller Medical Battalion at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. He has been sharing his journey on social media to collect funds for supporting their actions. He is the one and only Brandon Mitchell. So, Brandon, thank you for accepting the invitation. How are you doing?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much, Fanny. I'm well, and what was it? 30 seconds ago, as if on cue, the power just went out. But it doesn't matter. We're here.
Yeah, which gives a little bit of an insight of what's happening over there, right? So that's the reality you're facing.
But thank you to modern technology. We can carry on.
Okay. So for those who do not know you yet, could you give a quick presentation and a picture of what your battalion is doing in the front?
First of all, Hospitaller Hospitallers is a volunteer medical battalion. This is us, and we're part of UDA, Ukrainian Volunteer Army, which is mostly infantry combat roles, but we are on the medical side. Our battalion was formed by a woman who was 18 years old when she formed our battalion. Her name was Yana Zinkovich. She was volunteer medic in 2014, and quickly into the war, she seen the lackings of medical care for soldiers. What started as one ambulance turned to four. I believe we had, prior to the war, there was 12 ambulance crews, and the nature of the battalion is to support Army Medical on a time period. It could be as short as 2 weeks. It could be as long as 2 to 3 months. Since full-scale invasion, I couldn't say how many teams we have or members, but we are in the hundreds and hundreds now.
Okay, that's huge.
Yes.
And I think one information that's really important, from what I understand, it's funded by donation, like you do not receive any help from the government. Am I right?
You can't quote me on everything, but I don't lie because I'm a foreigner. So many things I have a child's understanding, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yana was very craftful. So there's been many patrons from overseas as well before full-scale invasion. Many Ukrainians. Some supplies have come from the government as well. We are a combat medical battalion. We are armed. Those rifles are not coming from foreign donations.
Okay.
But almost everything we have now, I would say the majority comes from foreign donations. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really vital for the battalion to be able to operate.
And we have different needs at different times, and now we're still not fully complete getting for winter clothing. Almost everybody is clothed, but not quite.
Okay. And can you describe a little bit what is your job? Like, we have seen through what you share on social media, different type of work. You provide some generators, you provide some stabilization points, you provide some evacuation from civilians. So what else do you do? Can you give us a little bit of an insight?
Okay. Originally, when I joined battalion, I did medical evacuation rotations, and this is the core bread and butter work of Hospitaller. I, to my knowledge, am the only foreigner who does essentially what they want. Now, I hope that doesn't sound as bad, as silly as it does. Our commander is very pragmatic, and it was only recently I discovered other people are like me, Ukrainians. For example, my second rotation, we worked for Pershatankova, their 1st Armored Brigade from Chernihiv, and I was so happy working there under the commander. I was doing fundraising, and I bought a generator for them. I went to Germany to purchase vehicles. I started in Instagram, and I was very successful in 2 months on Instagram. I started at the end of April, and they only had 3.5 kilowatts of power on an antique generator. That's not much. Okay, like if you ran a heater like you have in your house that you plug in, that's most of the power gone. And I went to them and I brought them a 7 kilowatt brand new diesel generator I found in Germany. I used my credit card to buy that one, but I stayed there. My commander, I called her and I said, I really like it here. I've come back to them with this supply. They like me. And she says, are you happy? Yes. Are they happy? Job done. I stopped doing rotations.
Okay.
And I was happy. And that led into what you see on the internet now. I went to Donetsk Oblast with an American paramedic who was Hospitaller. And we went during the Battle of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, when the Ukrainian army pulled out in the summer from there, Severodonetsk was a big thing in the news in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Like how Kherson was the big thing in the news. Now Bakhmut is, there was absolutely no fighting almost in northern Donetsk Oblast for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, we missed the war. But I found what are called army volunteers. If you would entertain me, I'm fascinated by them. There's Ukrainians who have been volunteering, which is quite unique in Donbass, not in other parts of the country.
Okay.
They've been since the old war. And what they are, they could be a man with a van or a woman with a car, and they have relationships. They don't want to be part of a group, they want to be equal. They know each other, but because the war's been so long, they know the local police, they know the local government, they know people in the army. And I was really inspired by my friend Dimitri I met there, who was an IT worker with no military experience, and he became volunteer. The word volontaire in Russian and Ukrainian is much different than the word in English. The term here, some of them are armed like he is, and will deliver packages to the army in this town, that town, or to the trenches. I was really inspired by this. And I started doing this work, and then it turned into civilian evacuation work, which involved me being injured in the summer. Yeah. But I had a brain injury, and my battalion commander took care of me. And I'm very lucky to be in a military unit to have the full care that we get.
Okay.
And when she asked what I want to do afterwards, I said, I want to be Hospitaller. But I want to do it. I want to be like how a volunteer is, because we don't have medical volunteers. So I film things on the internet, and I drive around and get explosions because it gets people's attention. I rescue civilians because we can film this, not like the army. And then people feel bad or good, and they give us money. And I use that to buy generators, mostly for army stabilization points. And now I'm giving them to combat units as well, because I didn't want to betray people's trust, but it became very honest with me that even NGOs now have decided to support the army. Whereas before, there's the people who've stayed with Ukraine now are not just, we only want to help civilians. They know Russians are killing civilians. So maybe if I can assume.
If you want to help civilians, helping the army is going to help.
Yeah. So now mostly generators. I get a lot of medical supplies, narcotics, antibiotics. I offer what I call Donbass taxi, and I know where many of medical stabilization and collection points are within 500 meters to 3 kilometers of Russians. And I know for about 100 kilometer stretch from north to south, just like an Uber or like Amazon, I make my rounds.
How do you get the information where the people are? Like the civilians that are still there?
Myself, I have a relationship with Le Mans regional police. And when I gave them a generator and I asked for more jobs, and I explained to him exactly a good day for us, we'll get shot at, and then we will rescue civilians. And this is how you got your generator. He gives me job. Okay. I'm very sorry that way, but that's the way the world works.
Yeah.
They want to see proof. So I get work from him. And a lot of the work is from the volunteers who went to those towns. And over a period of time, they gave out their phone numbers. We will bring you to hospital. You will be brought to Dnipro. Then when those communities can get phone signal at night, word would spread that it is what they said it was for the ones who took it takes a long time. Quite often you have to go there and talk to them for days. Sometimes I will help where a lot of the volunteers can't help. I'm just doing simple medical things like cleaning wounds. They could be from light shrapnel. They could be just older people who haven't seen a doctor in many months.
Yeah.
And a certain percentage of the community will leave. One small town I used to work in before I injured, it's the only one that I know of in Ukraine that had 100% evacuation before. It's as of 2 weeks ago, it's now Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so something that is not clear to me is, so the people who are basically living on the front line, they cannot go away. They don't have a place to go, or they are not willing to go because maybe they are, I don't know, like old people who, don't really want to leave their house. So how come you have so many people that are still around in such horrible and dangerous condition?
Well, to be fair, anybody with money left, I can be quite honest with you. You know, the bell curve of intelligence.
Yeah.
Vast majority are not right of the bell curve. If
Okay.
to be honest, many are poor. Some of them have been as far as Dnipro once in their life, or twice in their life. To imagine, they're not hipsters. The hipsters are refugees.
Yeah.
Most of them. So it's a big leap of faith to leave what you know. They're also very scared, as I've come to understand post-Soviet culture, particularly in the 1990s. These people had it so hard that what they have, they hoard things.
So how come, I would like to understand now, how come a Canadian who apparently was living around the world ended up going in Ukraine during wartime? So if you could take us by the hand and just, go back memory lane and explain a little bit your story. So I would start with, where do you come from?
Yeah, well, first of all, I had nothing better in my life holding me back. No, I grew up in a small town in New Brunswick, which is a bilingual province in Canada, in a small town called Miramichi. By Canadian standards, New Brunswick is the most impoverished province in Canada. My options were to join the army or sell drugs.
Okay.
And I've done both.
Okay.
I've done both. No, and I joined. I was in the cadet program as a kid. I joined the reserve army when I was 16 to the army. To eventually, I had an opportunity to transfer to the British Army, and that seemed like to travel and to join a famous regiment. I spent some time in Northern Ireland. I've had no combat tours in Iraq or Afghanistan, but to be completely honest, and I never lied to them in Ukraine, after about 4.5 years, I threw away my army career on drugs, 21, almost 22. And I continued traveling the world, and I partied, and I met a girl, and I screwed that up. And I went down a really bad path. But when I was 26 years old, I came to a point in my life I found what's called a 12-step program. And I've not had a drink or a drug since. And it's almost as if I had to learn to grow up again.
Okay. And you did it by yourself?
Well, no. The nature of a 12-step program, we do it together. You know, if I talk to you about my alcoholic grandmother or growing up with, maybe you understand everything. Maybe you don't. If I talk to you about the pain of feeling different as a kid because I didn't grow up with a mother, those people in those rooms just seem to really understand it on a core level. So no, we did it. And I've been involved with that 12-step program and worked those steps into my life to what I think quite a bit of success now for coming on 11 years.
Okay, well done.
So that's, and unless you're in a 12-step program, if I told you you don't congratulate your dog for not pissing on the rug, only people in 12-step programs understand that. But I just try to do the right. I try not to do bad, and try to do good. So that was me, and that brought me to new responsibilities in my life. I went to university, found my family that was good for me, reunited with my auntie Jennifer. She's my hero.
How old were you when you joined the university again?
26.
26.
Yeah, and I didn't know I would like. I really liked economics.
Okay.
I really liked that. Well, eventually I thought I would do something. I actually went back to the same industry, the sales industry that I was in, but instead of bankrupting a company this time, I was able to run one reasonably well. And
seeing from the other side. Nice.
From the other people in my industry that I didn't even know existed before or didn't want to know me. I've really built some rewarding relationships in my life. I moved back to England. I really got a satisfaction. I loved boxing when I was a kid, and in my late 20s, I trained hard, and I got to compete at the amateur level. I even got to teach some younger people, teenagers. That was some of my biggest joys. But I wasn't prepared for Corona, and that killed my cash flow. At that point, I had a girlfriend, a long distance relationship with a Swedish girl. She's lovely, and I was always scared to move to Sweden that I would have to start over.
Okay, because you were still in the UK and your girl was in Sweden, yeah. Okay.
And I had money, power, and prestige. No, but I was proud of who I was, like the place I had in my community, and like a trusted member of the community. And I didn't want to give that up. But Corona took away the finance, and and I moved to Sweden to be with Isabel in Stockholm. And there we lived. I started over and I worked my ass off. I worked my absolute ass off. And we got a dog, a beautiful dog, Masa.
Masa that you have on your patch, right?
Yeah, that's my Masa. I don't want to discount Isabel or anyone else, but Masa is the most beautiful relationship I've ever had in my life. Swedes can be very cold, especially in Stockholm. I could read the language, but I couldn't speak it because there was no one to speak to. But when I had my dog, all of a sudden they were, hur gammal är din hund? Vad är din hund för ras? Vad heter din hund? And then they were willing to talk. And within 6 months of having Masa, I passed a Swedish job interview.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can speak Swede, no problem now. Thanks
Jag
to
kan
Masa.
Ja. But we had some difficulties at home, some core difficulties, different beliefs and values, and I learned a little bit of compromise and patience, and because you can't win against a woman, and an angry woman. I have to sleep at night. But if I do love Isabel and I miss my dog. But if I can be completely honest, the war came at a really convenient time in my life.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie, I was very angry. I was very angry what I was seeing on the television, as you were, as everyone else was. The whole world was angry up until Johnny Depp got divorced, and then they lost focus. You didn't. Thank you. But
well, I have to do a mea culpa, because when the war broke, like, I had a period of time where I could not sleep because of what was happening. Like it was, obsessing me, and it was getting to the point that it was not great, So the Johnny Depp, I was like, well, it's so stupid and incredible that he was kind of a little bit of oxygen, and then I could focus again on the conflicts, the full scale war, but on a more healthy way I don't know if there is any healthy way, but like, at least I could sleep at night.
It was very unique. If you'll entertain me, my body went through a physiological change. Yeah.
How so? Describe us. Like, so you were in Sweden. Your life was not amazing. You had some issues, and
progress. Like, I had a lot to be proud for in Sweden, and it was getting better every day. It certainly wasn't what I wanted. For example, a job in my life. I've been self-employed my whole life. So my first job in Sweden, when I joined the army, my boss at my first job was 3 years old. So that was a bit of people complained about their position in life, but nobody did anything to make it better. Only 2 of us tried to start a union in the company, 2 out of the 50. But we went and got better jobs, studied the language, put in the effort. And even in my second job, I became a stone worker. I learned how to make beautiful, beautiful kitchens. My job is still waiting for me. Apparently, I won an award in the new year for one of the good employees, But it bothered me how people didn't care. Like, my boss didn't care as much as I did about the customer satisfaction. And I'm not insulting him or anything, but most of the world wants good, but they're not really willing to go get it. Oh, my life sucks. It's like, how are you? Oh, I'll be better at 5 o'clock. I never understood.
Yeah. I think it's also linked to the fact it depends on the challenges you had in your life. If you're someone that had a lot of challenges and you had to overcome a lot, then you're way more equipped to actually accept the situation and fight for it than someone that had everything kind of given. And then, it's just comfortable to stay there and complain about it, but not really do anything about it.
I mean, I love my work colleagues, but the things they talked about were so mundane, about the next holiday. It wasn't about doing now. When my in-laws, when I got my new job, and Isabel was so proud, like 70% higher pay because I could speak Swedish. All their questions for me was about, how much holiday do you get? What do you get for this benefit? Everything was not about what I actually was going to do. And I don't know, maybe I'm different, but when the war came about, I have hands the size of a girl, but I'm strong as an ox, or I was before this war. I lift 200 kilo stones upstairs all day, and I learned to do that. I became sick with the war, and I knew I had to come, but I couldn't sleep at night. And I had an energy about me, and all of a sudden at the gym, I would go from 20 pull-ups to 30. Like, in 2 days. I don't know what happened. Like that, there's really weird things happen. And I was very terrified. I was very scared because I didn't tell Isabel at first. I didn't tell anyone. But what we seen on the TV, I knew I would. If I can be completely honest with you here, I'm not suicidal, but I believed in my heart I was going to die here. And then eventually, after about 5-6 days, I rang up my auntie Jennifer, who I love so much, and I told her what I was going to do, and I broke down and cried like a little girl, and I just said, "This is what I'm going to do," and I love you very much. And I just want to let you know, she came to England to visit me. She's seen what I really wanted to take care of her those days, when she was to let her know that maybe I could take care of her someday when she got old, like that I grew up. And I just wanted to let her know that whatever happened in Ukraine, that I had such an amazing life. And it was because of her, partially, big part of it. And then I wasn't scared anymore. Once I told
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't scared of the dark anymore. I didn't come right away. So that was day 8 of the war. I was not a permanent resident of Sweden yet, and I took a big risk to come here to residency. That has yet to been decided. That's still an ongoing issue. Yeah, I made contact with a group of Swedes that were coming. There was this thing, Signal. We didn't even know what that was at the time. It's like WhatsApp, only better. Okay. 50 Swedes on there. When will you go? Oh, I'll go in March. I'll go in May. I'll go in June. I'll go in next year.
When it's over. They will go when it's over.
Yeah, one guy and I decided, we talked on the phone, a video call, and I knew he was for real. He just quit the police force to go. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to make my plea to immigration. I tried to do everything honest, telling them I was coming. And then I told my employer, and I didn't want to tell them. I told them I might have a family emergency coming up. My employer gave me full support. They're an Estonian company. Do you know where Estonia is located, by the way? Right beside Russia. Yeah, and they had 30 employees from Ukraine in the factory. They gave me all my pay, all my holiday pay, everything I had coming to me, and they said, your job will be waiting for you.
Why you didn't want to say that you were going to Ukraine?
Well, because it's a serious thing. It's no one's business. I wanted to get all my life affairs in order as responsibly as I could before coming here. Maybe someone might think that's foolish. Oh, he's just talking silly. Because how well does your employer you? I mean, I never had a sick day, so I'm pretty serious whether I like it or not. I know how to get out of bed in the morning. Not everyone does in the world, And Corona, whether people had it or not, there was a lot of people having a lot of sick days over those 2 years. But yeah, when I told them, your job will always wait for you. Yeah, that felt good. And I Krakow, and I met up with a group of 4 Swedes, and it was very scary to cross the border. 2 days ago, there was only 3 of us left here in Ukraine. My friend Nico, who we came together and joined Hospitallers, he died last week. We had his funeral 2 days ago. So there's only 2 of us left now. That was my life up to that point, and I was prepared to come to Ukraine to do anything. And then it was the Swedes who found some contact that we could eventually join Hospitallers and come to Kiev.
Okay, so basically you wanted to come and help, but you had no idea. Like, it was step by step, and there was no blueprint to say, okay, you need to go there, follow the line.
I thought you had to contribute to Ukraine, like this fancy thing, despite all my training or experience of my youth, that you had to be some GRGN, SAS, Delta Force, Navy Sea Commando. So I thought I'd try humanitarian work. I didn't want to get in the way. But when they went to Hospitallers a week before me, I tried to do some humanitarian work. I drove convoys from Kharkiv, Lviv to Kharkiv.
Okay.
But they said, you should come. You should come. You join. And I said, okay, I guess I'm back in the army. I guess I'll join the army again. That was very different, like the Battle of Kiev. Hospitallers went from maybe 12 ambulances to hundreds of, I don't even know how many people, but a lot of people, okay?
Yeah.
Mostly Ukrainian, some foreigners. It was very different times. I was never an active combatant or medic in the Battle of Kiev, where Nick and the others were. They had rotations in Bucha and Irpin. I was on our base in Kiev, which is at the time was at a big, massive church, a monastery. I did a 10-day course. I had combat lifesaver from the army years ago, but Edouard showed up. There was a brilliant nurse, Rebecca from Colorado. They put together the TCCC, the Tactical Combat Casualty Care course in English. And it's such a brilliant job. And we started doing prolonged care. On my second day, I was giving IVs, which I'd never done before.
Because you were not trained as a medic. I mean,
well, I had combat lifesaver courses, a year had experience on this, and that's basically a 5-day 2-week course that I had. That's what every soldier gets here now. Now, if they're lucky, but that was
yeah.
and I'm joining this medical battalion, and it's like, yeah, you're going to learn. Here's my arm. And that was 12 hours a day, for 10 hours, for 10 days. Then I got on a team.
Yeah.
I was asked to be a gunner on the ambulance crew, and I had no problem with that. I would have preferred to have been a driver.
Okay. Why is that?
No, why? Because, well, I've driven 1.5 million kilometers up and down the world.
Mhm.
I've only flipped a car once. Like even as a young boy,
Good stuff. Okay.
yeah, a lot of driving. So I thought a good driver, now we're at the point in the war, so many drivers have died. The status of a good driver has gone up immensely because a lot of people can drive, but have you ever been shot at or mortared and keep your cool while you're driving and do a 3-point turn? No, you haven't, have you?
Nope, I haven't. I wonder why. I haven't lived enough. No, I have been in let's say difficult places in Africa, but I've never been shot at or anything.
No. And that's one cool little side note about this war that I've learned as it's gone on. I used to always be class conscious living in England because I mixed with many different circles. But what's really fascinating in Ukraine now, people who are involved in the war, a good mechanic or a good tire changer has just as much value and status as an anesthesiologist.
Yeah. And
I've never been a socialist before, but I find this absolutely thrilling. One night we were doing training, and I can be quite emotional sometimes, but it was a very emotional moment for me. It was not a class for me, but it was about ultrasounds, which I now know how to operate a butterfly ultrasound, I've learned a lot of things here. I just asked one of the doctors, the short little girl, and I was 35 at the time. I'm not 20 anymore. And she's this cute little short thing. She's got a lovely soul. We're good friends. I said, Christina, what is your specialty in medicine? She's, I'm a neurosurgeon. And she said it off the cuff. And we have a joke in English. Well, it's not brain surgery. And I was very emotional because everything I'd done up to that point in life on paper, I hadn't succeeded in one field, and I was a stone worker in Sweden. On the face of it, this young, brilliant mind who is a neurosurgeon, who's almost complete her studies, I would be in charge of her safety. And I really took that very serious. That was very emotional for me then I look at these people younger than me, these anesthesiologists, interns, these people who devoted so much of their life to one specific field. That now they would be working on an ambulance, or they would be working on a medical stabilization point, that their lives would be at risk. And I felt great responsibility that their life was worth more than mine, and I must do everything I can to not only be the gunner there, but to make their lives easier, to make them a cup of tea, to be whatever they need. When we came there, all the gunners, the foreigners, we had to go through an interview process because Ukraine caught on that there was a lot of bullshit going on with foreign volunteers. I'll never forget till the day I die. Word for word, this young American boy walked in. I think he never took the coat hanger out of his coat. And there was an American ex-special forces, a British ex-special forces, and there was a Ukrainian girl who was a lawyer before the war in the middle, and they were doing a vetting process. And they said to him, what did you do before the war? And he's American. I was in 5th Group Special Forces, trained with 10th Mountain Division. I've been to Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. I did this with the GR 4567.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, you can stay here. And he went to pack boxes. And then I went for mine. And they said, what did you do before the war? I said, I built kitchens for IKEA. And they looked at each other and says, any military experience? I said, yeah, years ago, I was in the Black Watch. Any combat experience? I said, no, I've been to Northern Ireland. And the American's like, what's that? I was like, that's like Bosnia in 2000, pretty calm. And the British man said, the Black Watch is a good regiment. He was in Northern Ireland. He was good skills for driving in convoy. And then they said, do you want to go to the front? And I said, yes. I'll go wherever you want me to go. 5th Group Special Forces went to pack boxes. He was gone in 2 weeks. And I was off to the Zaporizhzhia front when there was still a war.
Yeah. When you hear there is a war and then you want to go and have a gun and kill the bad people, and then you go there and you realize that you might be doing some logistic, because war is about mainly logistic and having the right people at the right place and how do you transport them and stuff. And that's not, like what you see in movies where you just have a gun, or in video games where that's it, go and be the hero or the goodie, No, no. That's not like that.
No, it's not. Edouard and I were on a team together. Edouard Bonneman, he's a Frenchman of Prague. Our first rotation was in a hospital, and it was the nearest hospital to the Russian lines on the Zaporizhia front. And I'm very grateful for that time, because I got to see what good pre-hospital care was and bad pre-hospital care was. With Edouard, it was such a godsend. We were the only two foreigners there. Between casualties coming and going, we would often have a coffee, a cigarette, and we would talk about the protocol, the algorithm, what happened, what could have gone better. He was a teacher who was able to walk me through so much. But as a non-Russian speaking, non-Ukrainian speaking person, I learned very quickly that when the ambulances came in, there could be 5 people working on one casualty right from when it comes in, stabilize them, to send them to Zaporizhia or Dnipro. And because I didn't have the language, I had to jump on the casualty. I couldn't be 30 seconds late, because I could follow the whole algorithm through. And I learned the process from fractures, from abdominal wounds to head trauma. And I don't mean to underestimate the doctors, because I don't know the parameters of why they do certain things or why they do drugs, but I know the whole protocol for every one of these things. Eventually, I would take the drugs. I knew what casualties were coming in, so I would draw up the ampules. If we had word of what was coming, I knew what we were going to be using. So that was a nice little thing for me, to be able to make doctors' and nurses' lives easier. Then to get there on the casualty, to cut off the clothes, to remove the documents, the grenades, to cut around the tourniquets, to hold skin. Like I've actually, with a Russian speaking doctor, I've assisted in surgery quite a few times, holding the skin, because it's very simple. There's something in there. Either we're going to take it out or we're not going to take it out till Dnipro. So I know what skin to hold, and I know how to hold the clamp. I know where he's cutting. Or an anesthesiologist, they will work with their needles, and they're so good with their hands, how they will go with things like lidocaine that will numb the local agents, just like your grandmother can sew as fast as they can.
Yeah.
And I knew how to help them, to the point where I was quite proud of myself. Eventually, I knew the ratio of concussion patients we would have, usually.
Okay.
So I would prepare them, then I would administer the drugs. And that, if there were 6 people there, that could take 20 minutes or more. So I was proud of myself. But then Edouard left us, and then the next rotation was to the front, which was very surprising to me. It wasn't what I expected at all.
You would have rather stayed and help with the medical, like the surgeon team?
No, I was game for anything. But what was so shocking to me, I've participated now in 2 battles. A battle can last for several days, but it's a big war. It's a big country. And what really surprised me from that hospital, where we would get 50, 60 plus critically wounded a day, if the front line was a base of a triangle, however medical, it's a big, long, wide front. There would be different collection points, stabilizations, there would be evacuations. But the point of that triangle at the top is the hospital. So the hospital would always be the busiest. Whereas my friend Rebecca and Christina were part of an ambulance crew, maybe 10 kilometers away from us. And I heard rumors that they were getting thrashed, where we hadn't seen a casualty for 5 days, 6 days, because we can't leave our position, because that's their position. But the hospital was the top of the triangle. You understand? Everything would the hospital. So that was really surprising to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I've seen some horrific things, and buildings would blow up around us. But it was it was your day to get it. It's like, oh, it's raining here, but it's sunny over there. But then, that was very. Then I was the only foreigner, and I love my dog. I developed a strong relationship with the local dog. We would all live in houses. You wouldn't know when you could go out, because there could be drones on the radio, so they would tell you. That was more lonely. I hope my commander would have been like Rebecca and some of the Westerners, that when we're not working, we're training, but when we're not working, we're candy crushing. So spent a lot of time when I could get signal watching a lot of YouTube videos, carrying on my education. Sometimes we would get casualties. Yeah, I had my first man die on me, and I had to go in the back of the ambulance because they were too weak to carry on CPR. I didn't know how strenuous CPR was. And anyway, for 8 minutes I tried, but he died. I seen a lot of good things, a lot of bad things like that. We were also getting in the Zaporizhzhia line, we were getting the boys coming back from Mariupol who pulled out. And even my commander, who was not a good commander at the time, she had the understanding to leave me in a position one day with a boy from Finland, two foreigners, because she knew the state he was in, and I would talk to him all day and he would talk to me. And he came from the Azov. Yeah, the big bad Azov that everyone talked about. And he was the nicest boy in the world. But he told his commander, he says, I can't do this anymore. And they were quite compassionate with him. So you were a foreigner, you've done more than enough, and you should go home and have children. But yeah, I felt guilty there because I'd not seen Mariupol. Be careful what you wish for. And May 14th, the 1st Armored Brigade, which comes from Chernihiv, which beat the Russians back into Belarus. Their very home oblast, their hometown. They came to Zaporizhzhia front, and we were told to report to a medical stabilization that was just being set up, and that there would be an attack, a Ukrainian attack, and it would commence within 12 to 18 hours. And in the house I lived in at 3 a.m, I heard the loudest bangs of my life. The big artillery guns were right behind us. They hit them for 6 hours non-stop. There wasn't 30 seconds that went by that there wasn't rockets, that there wasn't artillery. And we were told to report to our position. And this was my first experience with what was called medical stabilization. And this is kind of my inspiration of the whole war. 1st Armored Brigade Medical was commanded by an Igor Petrovich, who he's become like a father figure to me. He's been over 35 years Ukrainian Army Medical. He's a surgeon, and he's been the commander of United Nations missions in Lebanon, in Yemen. And although we were very busy and I was the foreigner there, he made a point to come up to me and acknowledge me and give me a hug and thank me. And he spoke excellent English. And then we got to work. And I don't like to focus on the negative, but the commander on my team wasn't a hard worker. And anytime I did something proactive, I was scolded. So over the run of receiving hundreds of casualties a day and dead, I realized that there was enough work to do. I could avoid her. I would carry, because I have a strong back, I would carry them in off the ambulances. I would assess them to go into the surgeons. For some time, I stacked bodies till we didn't have body bags, and we would wrap them in the emergency blankets, the silver and gold blankets, and we would duct tape them. I'd go through their documents, their passports, their phones, take them out. I'd be covered in blood. And we worked there for a few days. And I remember you would get quiet times for maybe 15, 20 minutes. I remember we went outside, the Ukrainian jet fighters flew over us, and I seen what they call a sortie. I seen them dropping on the Russian positions. I seen almost like mushroom clouds in the air, and then they would fly back over us, and everybody, like if there was 100 people outside, would be shouting and giving them love. And just like in the movies, they did the goodbye. And I can't tell you what a feeling that was. There was some young boys from Azov, a group from Finland, that were passing through, and I talked to them briefly. There wasn't many foreigners except for Azov. And, maybe in the next day or two, I stacked a couple of them. Anyway, when that was over in a few days, I felt really quite bitter, because I'd get phone signal at night. So I'd look at my BBC News app, and Ukraine won the Eurovision. And nobody gave a fuck where I was. And I thought to myself, I suppose I'm not so bitter about that stuff now, but I'm glad we won a fucking song contest. Nobody knew what it was where I was. That was the proudest. If I did anything with my life to this day, that would be the proudest I've ever been. I was even able to stop and assess a couple of things, and I had the courage to speak up on identifying bleeds that weren't identified on people with the tourniquets, and to have the courage to speak up to the doctors, because some people don't, and they're tired. And those people are amazing. They fought for their home for over 2 months in some of the worst fighting in this war in Chernihiv, and they beat them back, and they didn't even get to say goodbye to their families, and they came to the Zaporizhzhia front, and a lot of those men were sent to their death by their commanders. I don't think France or any of our countries have ever had to do that in many, many years, where they had to send men to one point knowing they were all going to die to soften another point.
That's for sure. Yeah.
That led to a fundraiser in my Instagram.
Yeah.
And
So that's how you started doing the social media to fundraise. Can you explain quickly how this started and how it is now?
yeah, I decided, I bought my armor plates were Soviet and they were very painful. And there was a volunteer from Canada going home, and he had these beautiful Kevlar armor plates. And I thought, oh, I'll treat myself. I came to Ukraine with $7,000. I figured I could live on $20 a day average. And he says, I can't give these to you, you know. And they were over $1,000, and I bought them on an impulse. But then I'm quite good with my money. I said, well, wait a minute. If I buy this and I don't even have a helmet, if I buy a helmet, I'll want to buy a good one. I'm going to run out of money here. And I became very bitter and angry, you know, because I didn't like people who talked to the reporters. There was a lot of bullshit people. Like, don't quote me on that, but I killed 10 Russians. Maybe I could an Instagram account because I knew people were doing that, you know. There's a famous guy from France who actually scammed people for 100,000 euros. He's from Nice, but I didn't want to do that. But I thought surely I could buy helmets for our crew. And then my friend Johnny FD, who became my friend, he was a YouTuber. He used to travel with a guy called Bald and Bankrupt, who was quite famous for traveling post-Soviet countries. I said, I'll write to Johnny because I've got this Instagram and maybe he'll shout me and worry. I didn't know how Instagram worked.
Yeah.
Sent me $2,000. You know what I mean? Amazing. Like he called me. I was in the back of the ambulance once. I couldn't believe it. He said, I'm going to send you $2,000. I told my commander because I thought this is a lot of money. She said, Brandon, we need 4-wheel drive. Now, I come from a small business family. They're Lebanese. She has no concept of money because she never had any. And I said, do you know what you're asking of me? And I said, all right, well, I'll see if I can whore myself out on the internet for a 4-wheel drive. But do you know what I did? I started an Instagram. I'd film the cats and dogs because I liked them, and I knew people liked cats and dogs. And sometimes I'd record the shelling in the background and the cats and dogs. But anybody who followed me, I sent a 1-minute voice message. I'd look at their profile, and I took the time to do this. If they had animals, I'd talk about that, or a beautiful sunset, whatever, something personal. I'd mention their name, say, you know, I don't expect you to donate, but if you see anything here, if you'd share in your stories, then some people could decide for themselves. And I did that for the first 5,000 people. And people would...
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't going to quit. I was here for the war.
Yeah.
And people would write me back, and they told me stories like, their mother died of cancer and they never had kids, but they had a good job and they realized they wanted to support Ukraine. And I wasn't the firstborn volunteer that they supported. They were desperate for an outlet. Yeah. And I quickly had a little army. Yeah, I went to Germany to buy one vehicle because the price was so expensive in Ukraine. And I thought, well, I have the money for one. I have more than enough for one. Maybe I can beg on Instagram and we'll have enough to buy 2 in Germany. And I went to Germany. And there was networks, like people were contacting me, like, I've been following you, come to Nuremberg. I'm looking at a vehicle today for you. I was like, okay. I went with my friend, we're going to Nuremberg. And then someone says, you have to come to Stuttgart because I have this and this for you. And we don't worry, we'll give you money. We'll give you a place to stay. And I said, okay, we're going to Stuttgart. I didn't know how far it was from Nuremberg. We had a rental car. This man gave me 500 euros cash. He gave me a generator. They were part of an organization. They'd been coming to Ukraine since the beginning of the war every month with like trucks. So there was all these networks in Europe, and you're aware of some are good, some of them are, some of them have failed. I didn't realize how organized people were in Europe for this war. And I was just something for them to channel it through. We came back with 2 trucks. We came back with a diesel generator. But what I did on Instagram, I recorded the proof of work, what we were buying. I was myself. It took a lot of courage to be myself because it's like, who would want to be me? And if I didn't lie and I was just me, like I say the F word a lot, and I don't mean to.
Fine. And I think you make it real. That's why people can relate. You're not going to sugarcoat anything.
Or like to speed it up here, once I started doing the civilian evacuations and filming it, the followers went to like new levels, and the guns and the explosions and then in the summer I was working on the Russian side of Soledar, and I had the camera running as I often did. Started trying to make YouTube videos because I even got a friend of mine to translate some of the Russian spoken by these old ladies in the basement. That was really important to me. Go to TikTok if you're an idiot. No offense. 1, 2, 3, look at me. Instagram's a little bit better. And then YouTube, people wanted a context. And I was real proud of myself when I started making a couple of YouTube videos of like explaining why we're doing what we're doing, or how this woman doesn't want to leave without her dog. And then I had filmed one day I was very scared. I drove through a minefield several times into Russian Solidar. We ended up getting 9 people out one night, 4 children. And when I went back, we'd found 17 more people who wanted to leave. I'd been shot at a couple times that day, which wasn't the first time, but it was the most intense. I hit 2 Russian anti-personnel mines, and that was filmed. I didn't know at the time, but I suffered a brain injury. I've lost most of my hearing in my right ear. And the Ukrainian army, on a position that I'd passed many times that I didn't know existed, they came and got me and pulled me out. Yeah, I can make all the jokes I want about it. That was the best thing that I ever did for Ukraine, get blowing up.
Yeah. Sadly, I'm sorry you had to go through that, though.
Yeah, well, next time I'm thinking if I can lose a leg, like a pirate, if options are down. I was loved and cared for in Dnipro, in the hospital. I've seen the whole process from the battlefield to the final hospital we have in Kiev, where there's over 3,000 soldiers right now with no arms, no legs, people who look fine like me but aren't fine. I've seen it all, the whole medical process. I had strangers come visit me in the hospital in Dnipro, Ukrainians. Just because I had a social media, there's so many people that have done a hell of a lot more than me. But when I got to Kiev in the hospital, there was the care I was given. Like, we don't have this in Western medicine. I bet you don't have it in France. They wouldn't let me leave that hospital till everything was perfect. I was concerned about my lungs, and the doctor in charge of me says, "Give me 10 minutes." And she comes back and she says, "You have an appointment tomorrow with a pulmonologist." And I was when I went back to my battalion commander, because I've been working with the volunteers on the Ukrainian side in the uniform, I don't want to brag myself up. I moved to another stratosphere, and all of a sudden it was like, "What do you want to do, Brandon? You want to stay? Okay, we want you to stay. What do you want to do? Okay, we'll make that happen. What do you need to make that happen?" And a lot of foreign people have basically supported every effort that I thought was worth doing. So it's been quite a journey. It's very humbling, but I do have to admit I have had some longer term effects I'm dealing with in my head. I'm an insomniac. I can't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours, and that's taken a toll.
Is this since you arrived in Ukraine? You mean it's like it's a war, the toll of the war?
It's the minefield. What happened, because the pressure, I've actually suffered brain damage, and I don't like that, because I didn't have all the athletic tools in my life. I'm not the smartest, but I'm far from the stupidest. All I've ever had in my life was this. I've done all right with it, and everything works the same, but I don't have the same stamina, and I don't have the same patience. I fight 2 wars in Bakhmut, in Limansk region, and I do the internet, and I have to read every message because now people are entrusting me. I have doctors that come to Kramatorsk to bring me ketamine. Do you know what ketamine is?
No, I mean, I know the name, but I don't know the use of it.
Opioids. This is a very powerful narcotic that's used. It's highly sought after for many reasons. But you can give it to anybody, whereas you can't give drugs. I have these people, just because of my internet platform, that will bring me narcotics, will bring me antibiotics, will bring me. You know how much those tourniquets cost. I've had foreign people that didn't know who to give. They give me 100 tourniquets. Do you know some people donate $5 to what we're doing here? Some people give me 1,000. So I know we're doing a good thing here. And I just try to do the right thing every day, mostly with the generators we bring from Germany every month, or has been every month, and vehicles and now radios. That's a big thing. And now people who don't want to give money. I found someone who I found a way to get the radio if they're prepared to spend the 400 euros. Yeah, a lot of good people care, and they haven't turned the page on Ukraine.
Yeah, and your platform definitely helped keep awareness on what's going on. and the reality of it, not, sugar coated or even, it's quite difficult when you just hear about the war from the media and you're going to have statistics and it's very dehumanized. So I think you bring the fact that, okay, war looks like that and it's ugly and it's about money. I mean, it all comes down to money. So the more you can get, the better it is. So
I don't pretend to try to understand this. I don't a philosophy, but there's something about that blue and yellow flag that has lit a fire under the ass of so many people in the Western world. I don't know if I should say this wearing this uniform, but I don't think that governments care about Ukraine. They hate Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Those weapons don't come as much as we need. They come piecemeal.
Mm-hmm.
The HIMARS missiles you hear about, the javelins that stop the tanks, they come little by little. That's the act of someone who hates Russia, who wants to draw them in. But the people who voted for those government, the normal people like you or me, not the corporations. We get medical supplies that we don't ask for, and they're quite often expired.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with plastics, with intubation, plastic doesn't go. You can't take a chance. They give us what they want to give, not what we ask for. But people with no medical background, people with their local Rotary clubs, I'm sure you have those in France as well. Yeah. People like individuals, groups, they're the ones who get us the tourniquets. They're the ones who get us the chest seals, the stuff we actually ask for. And
it's coming from the people. Yeah.
That's love for Ukraine. That's that governments is hate for Russia. I shouldn't say, but it's the people who choose. No, we're sick of this. Yeah, I really feel I do feel that, and a lot of people here feel that too. There's a lot of tired and cynical people here. They know where it comes from, because they've heard the stories. They have social media too.
Yeah,
some of them. There was a. I don't want to talk forever, but I you got me started. Westerners had an access to a Ukrainian's Instagram, because the language is different different alphabet. But more and more now, people are finding, I think through social media, one of the good things, Westerners are finding certain Ukrainians on the ground that they're following. And to a certain degree, I've been one of the better examples where Ukrainians who don't even speak English are following me. So there's been a crossover. So you know what's going on the ground, not what TV5 or BBC or want to tell you. But they know on the other side too what doesn't get reported in the news, that France is sending this missile, or Britain is sending these javelins, and they'll be here next month. But they're actually hearing about like the homegrown efforts.
Yeah. But if you want to get like good news, like good real news from the field, you go on Telegram. Like I'm following like few channels on Telegram, and it's a constant feed of information, but like
you can get
it's way too much. But yeah, it's that's the news that you get. So how do you keep sane in all of this? You mentioned a few times in your video like your mental health, which is, I think, a huge component, because you're taking so much stress, so much horror. I mean, we are not prepared for that, and suddenly you get a full blast for a month. How do you manage that?
Well, I do struggle with it. And I've had goals that I've had to postpone. I want to go back on rotations to do casualty evacuation, and possibly even be a trench medic. That's something I would really like to do. I haven't done 5 casualty evacuations in the past 2 months. Sometimes I get to do them, but that's my biggest joy. When you do everything right and you hand them off to the next level of care, that's a bigger high for me. But I like the war. I really do like the war. I like the good people I'm around. I'm so fucking good at the social media thing. And I didn't I didn't want to be, but like, do you know, like, I have to decide right now, and the more honest I am with people, the more they support. I have to decide right now, because I can easily afford to do it. Am I going to buy 4 Starlinks for €500 each, or am I going to put it all towards generators? And I didn't even know what to do with some money the other day. So like I bought someone a set of tires, or one of the people that works with me. And if I tell the truth, I don't even need to tell people because I think it's braggadism. But like one of the people I work with close, they lost their phone in an accident recently. I went and bought them a new phone. She's a 19-year-old. Why shouldn't she have a good phone? And people don't seem to care about that. So I can't stop doing this, but the social media is the hardest part. If anybody wants to talk, I avoid all foreigners like a plague in Ukraine, because they always want to talk about the war. And I have a bit of a profile. It's like, if you were a window cleaner, how would you feel if somebody came up to you for 2 hours and talked about cleaning windows? I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I watch silly videos, like how people interpret movies, like the real meaning was. I don't know if you've ever watched those sort of things.
Not really.
No, everybody has their own thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Haven't been on too many dates here in Ukraine because I'm basically the single man who, when I'm in Kiev, I'm not Azov. I'm not like my buddy Yankee, who's this big. I'm not getting, no one's sending me pictures like they do to him. Thank you. But when you rescue grandmothers, it doesn't really inspire that.
I suppose not.
Yeah. So I do have a couple friends.
You need the mustache. That's what you should do.
Yeah. You see, you follow Yankee, don't you? Yankee from Belarus. So you know that.
You know what? I actually have heard from him in one of Starsky's video. I mean, I didn't know the guy. I was following Starsky from the get-go. So no, sorry. I'm a Starsky fan, not the Yankee fan.
Yeah, Starsky's I'm going to meet him tomorrow, actually. He's helping me to get a GoPro. I don't even know how to work a laptop. Like, I have Apple because I don't know how to work anything. But he's been really supportive of my platform. I think one of the reasons people like him, maybe because they kind of like me, we're a bit socially awkward. He's a bit of a nerd, but nerds can be tough as fuck.
Yeah, I like his sense of humor. Like my husband actually showed me his videos the first time, and he was like, "You're gonna like this guy because he's got the same humor." So yeah, it was just so funny.
Well, I'm gonna meet his dog tomorrow, Fudge. I used to work with his friend Max in Donbass, and that's how we got to meet. I just find it because his English is really good, and we click. I hang out with my friend Johnny, who was the YouTuber who helped me, because he just talks about normal stuff, like not the war, like about this time I was traveling in Greece, or like normal stuff.
Yeah.
That's the biggest help I have. Like if I'm in Kiev 1 week out of every 6, I try to hang out with people like that. That's the only thing I have, if I'm completely honest. I have a couple friends in Kiev, and I love my work colleagues, like Nika and the other hospitallers that I've served with. But I don't have anything. I don't have anything done. Just when I'm here, I try to hang out with the few people who I know are good for me.
Yeah. And spend time with your friends. You are the one to say it.
That's pretty much it. That's yeah. I'm sad. I'm sad to say that. I'm not. Well, I'm not sad to say that. That's just the truth.
Yeah. And I'm gonna ask you the last question. And
yeah, do a question after you ask me a question.
Okay. What are you gonna do once the war is over and Ukraine wins?
Well, I'm gonna stay in Ukraine for a while and make sure that the war is really over, because there won't be an easy peace. I don't trust Russia.
Who does?
I don't trust.
Who does?
No, I don't trust them. And then I would really like to go back to Sweden and be with my dog. I don't think too much time has passed, but me and Isabel have a deep friendship. We'll see what happens there, but I have to try. And I'll go back to doing what I was doing before. About 3 weeks before I came to Ukraine, my tax number came in. I was going to restart my business. I was going to do it a bit more risk averse, we call it. I was going to keep my job and slowly build my business back to what it was, and make probably no doubt even better than before, because I had some good help. So that's all I want to do. If I could say this, I've learned one thing about social media. I know I'll lose a lot of followers because it's not Ukraine, but I might gain some new ones. I've decided I'm going to keep the YouTube platform for sure, and I'll keep the Instagram, because we might need to break in case of war again, and we might need to rally. So we shouldn't lose these contacts. But I'm going to keep doing YouTube, but I want to do it for good causes, like my local boxing club at home, and some of the kids I've taught. I think I could make some compelling stories on there, and don't need to know anything about boxing, but maybe you'd like to know about the human spirit and kids' development.
Yeah.
It could be anything, but I'm going to keep trying to do social media for some sort of good. Get my business, get my dog, get a house in hopefully not too close to anyone else.
Isolated somewhere in nature.
Maybe have some puppies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really
Nice.
important. If I can say that, I didn't ever know if I wanted children because of my own upbringing and not really having parents, but which is quite common with people like me. But I started feeling like a paternal instinct maybe the past year or two. From what I've seen in Ukraine, I think children are the most important thing in this world now. I honestly believe that it's my duty to have one or two and do the best I can for them. There's a lot better people than me here that have died in this war. So that would be a good way I could honor them and honor myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing
we just
picture to look for.
Yeah, we just want the best for everybody around us in life.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
And let me ask you.
The question.
Well, you interview all these people. How many people ever ask you about you? What you moved back from Indonesia was it Bali? You moved back to France. You've helped Ukrainians, a family that have come to live with you. You've stayed involved with the Ukraine cause, an advocate. Why do you do this? And what do you get out of it? Because I know you get something out of it. We all do. Connection
with people. It's good for humanity. It's good for your own humanity. It's the best way I could describe, because it's hard to explain being so, as just like you, when the war broke, I felt sick. Like I could not sleep. Like I was obsessed with it. Like I could not believe, like I was in shock. And, I'm French. I'm not Ukrainian. I've been in places in Africa and even in Indonesia where, like in Africa, civil war is happening all the time. And I've seen it close. I've never been in, like shot at or anything like that, but we've seen it. And why Ukraine? I think it's just like it's your humanity that is touched. I think I was naive. I didn't believe that this would ever happen. So suddenly you have a big wake up call of, okay, this is what freedom worth. This is what you have to pay to get it. I never had to do anything to have all of, I was so privileged. And I guess it was, a big wake up call. And then because we were far away, it was quite hard. Like we wanted to do something, but what can you do when you're living so far away? So we had a house here in France. So at some point when refugees started arriving to France, because at first it was, more like in the neighboring countries around Ukraine. And then when it started coming to south of France, where we are at now, then we got in touch with a family on Facebook. So see, social media again. Because of course, there is a lot of help from the government, from the French government. They are actually doing quite good things, but there is still big lack of accommodation. So we offer this place for this family, and they are now friends. They found an apartment. They are trying to build their life here, at least for some time. We are trying to set up an association to try to help the refugees, because it's one thing to going out of bombs, and then that's another story and another challenge and another struggle to actually start something when your family or part of your family is still in danger. And so there is still a lot of work to do to help. And to answer your question of what good do I get, it's just, it feels good. It's your humanity. Helping each other feels good. That's all it is, really.
It's beautiful. This has been the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in humanity. I became quite bitter about the whole world with social media, and nobody's scared of getting a punch in the face, and they didn't have to look at another human. We've had this left versus right. This is I'm right, you're wrong thing going on for so many years. I felt suffocated. That's why I didn't have social a couple of years. But I've seen what you're doing, what everyone, people that I would never have met, people that wouldn't even ever talk to each other have been united by this. Completely different beliefs, races, religions. And I never would have had the privilege to talk to you if it wasn't for the worst crime against humanity since the last big one.
Yeah.
So maybe someday, I think you're going to make a beautiful babushka someday, because you have a good soul. And I hope we'll meet in person.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, we're not that far away, so.
No, not that far away.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for giving me the platform and for your patience and consideration.
Well, thank you very much for accepting and taking the time, because I know your time is precious. So thank you so much. I will put all the links in the description of the video, and please, if anyone listening who can help, please help the work that Brendan and all the brothers and sisters of the Hospitaller are doing, because you guys are saving lives, and that's really precious. So thank you so much, Brendan.
Thank you, Fanny. Bonne nuit.